Hello, ladies. Thank you for joining in. Nina, I've sent you another invite. It wasn't going through.
Hey,
Hello. Good afternoon.
good afternoon,
You look
Alero.
nice and blue.
Thank you. You look lovely as always
Thank you.
for having
Can
me.
everyone hear us okay? Thank you all for joining in. I've got my fan on in the background. It's so hot. So if it's making any sound, please pardon me.
No worries. It's lovely and hot today.
Thank you. It's lovely and hot. Yes. So let's go right in. I know you've got a busy day today. Thank you for making out the time to come online this afternoon. So where do we begin from? Can you first and foremost, I know some people know you, but let us start from telling us who you are outside of the womb care and everything. Who is Nina? Tell us who you are.
So, Nina is a mother of three lovely children, a newly divorcee, just about to go through. She is the eldest of two sisters and a half brother. And I'm I love to work. I love to follow my passion, which is helping women around the world improve their womb health and their overall wellness.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. So now we know who you are. We know that you're a mother. Yes, going through a divorce process, that's a tough one. And I can't even imagine how you cope with, running around with the kids and doing what you want to do and everything. But well done, well done.
By
That
the
shows
great,
how strong you are. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So can you, I know you, I know some people, I can see some regular faces here, so they know the story. But yes, we still have to go through this process every time. Can you tell us your story and your journey with your womb disorder and, where you are now?
Yes, I'll try and give you the shortened version, Alero. Thank you for this opportunity. And thanks for creating your platform that is so instrumental in so many women's lives. So I really have to give you honor where honor is due.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I grew up very insecure because my mum was a single mum, and my dad was never around to kind of tell me I was beautiful, tell me I was enough. And I kind of went looking for that in, I suppose, relationships, friendships. So I was very lost, and I turned to food to be my friend in a nutshell. And I gained a lot of weight, trying to find myself in the world, but still struggling with food, and my weight. And to cut a long story short, I went through a very, very bad patch in my life where I was living on handouts. I was not doing my hair. I think it was borderline in depression, but I hadn't labeled it as such because ironically, I hadn't gotten time to go to the doctors to get that label and get maybe medication for it. But I got through it. And unfortunately, it was a time where my fibroids must have grown the most. And little did I know at the time. So, with everything else that was going on, then I had cancerous cells being detected on my smear tests as well. So, that happened before I knew about the fibroids. So, that was very stressful, scary. I went through various stages of screening, and a lot of prayer, a lot of, I suppose, just looking deeper into what else was going on in my life. They came back normal. So it got to like a final stage where it would be referred. but then they just miraculously just came back normal, the results, and I was just cleared. And that was a turning point in my life in regards to reflection on my how I was living, my health, my mental health, and the decisions I was making. And then I got the fibroids diagnosis after that. So a lot happened. And at that point, I was told, you know, having a hysterectomy, I had to factor that in as a possibility. So if I bled too much, they'd take out my womb. And that again was like, what is going on? It was almost like an out of body experience. Is this
Mm.
my life kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I just did a bit of research and just realized that, okay, they're talking about blood loss. So if we cut the operating time, surely this is going to cut the blood loss, right? And it
Mm.
would reduce the risks of having this you're having my womb removed if I bled too much. And it was like common sense to me, so I just suggested to the consultant on the next kind of appointment, can you just take out less fibroids, like don't try and remove them all. And he did. They agreed to do that, you know, not actually try and take them all out, just focus on the larger sized ones. Even though they were all pretty large, they focused on the larger sized ones. And fast forward again, luckily they did that because I bled a lot. I bled a lot. And that was down to, I went in, I wasn't in a good place physically. You know, there's so many variables that do impact the level of bleeding.
Mm.
So touch wood, I got out of there with you know, my uterus bled a lot. So if they had tried, I don't think it would have
Can
gone the
imagine.
plan,
Mm.
because they were really big. So everything changed when I got out of that procedure. I had to just completely overhaul not just physical aspects, but mentally, because you can be sick physically, but if you're sick mentally, it doesn't matter what
What
supplement you buy, it doesn't matter what surgery you do, it doesn't matter. You will still reset onto that default behavior, which
mm.
for me, it was literally self-sabotage. In all honesty, I was self-sabotaging before, to not progress, fear of progression, fear of so many different things. So that's where it all changed, and I was now working on myself. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's wild. You know, oh, I have been through, I've had open myomectomy, which you know, and that fear of excess bleeding, that fear of not knowing what's going to happen after the surgery, it's something I don't think people actually think about before surgery. It's when you're going in, you're actually like, okay, I hope I don't, you know, have excessive bleeding.
mm,
And you, even with the fact that they didn't take out everything, you still had heavy bleeding. That goes to
mm,
show how big it was, how
yeah,
risky that surgery was as well.
yeah,
Um, so, what would you say, um, you know, after your surgery, because you're going to hurt ahead to have 3 lovely, beautiful children, what would you say was the best thing that you did to get yourself back on your feet after surgery?
yeah. I think the most important part of that process of healing was just taking a break from all kind of stimuli that I was ordinarily accustomed to. So whether that was conversations or situations, it was just literally cutting them all off and just going into almost like isolation, to just have deep self-reflection and focus on what I needed to do physically, and mentally, to see the changes that I wanted to see. So that would be the biggest part for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before you were diagnosed with fibroid, did you have any symptoms? Did you notice any change or anything happening with your body?
Yeah, definitely. I was heavy. I was bleeding very heavily, but it was normal to me. I
Yeah.
would flood at times. I remember flooding in a restaurant, and my sisters had to bring me a change of clothes because I was wearing a light color
Yeah.
and everything was just destroyed. And I'd flood quite often, actually, home, but a few times outside. I just a lot of stress that was very intense. At one point, I was grinding my teeth when I was
Mm.
sleeping. That's how the stress was kind of
Yeah.
eating me up from within. Um, and I was always kind of moody, very emotional. It was a lot. In hindsight, there was a lot going on for a long time.
Yeah, and these are the signs and symptoms that people tend not to notice, especially, just the regular symptoms that people, heavy periods, pain, but the mental ones, like you're saying, grinding your teeth, a lot of
Mm,
things go on. A lot of people, a lot of women go into depression to these
yeah,
symptoms. I don't even realize they're depressed. You're
yeah,
triggered easily, you're angry so quickly, you get irritated so quickly, but we don't link these things to, what's going on with our periods. We don't link them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And they were very painful as well. They were very painful. And I remember every month, particularly at school, I would just cry uncontrollably every month. It was weird how I would behave, but that was a regular occurrence as well.
Mm,
Mm,
crazy. I don't even want to remember my secondary school days with my periods. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So let's take it back or take us down to the present now. So now you've should I say mastered how to handle or deal with fibroids. You've mastered how to take care of yourself, your womb health, your mental health, your reproductive health in general. Um, what was the process to get to this point? What did you need to do? What did you have to do? And how long did it take you to actually say, you know, I've got it now?
yeah. Interestingly enough, my focus was on the ones that were removed, not growing back. My
Good.
focus wasn't on shrinking the ones that were left, that were about kind of orange sizes. So over a time frame of about 5 years, a lot of shrinkage had taken place, but again, my focus was the ones that were removed, not growing back. So when I had the scans around Vanea's pregnancy, and I was told, "Oh, the fibroids are a lot smaller. What's going on," kind of thing, because they were aware of obviously how they were before, and it was really then that I realized, wow, it worked. It worked
Mhm.
because I had just started implementing what I was reading. I was doing lots of training with the company that I was working with in regards to nutrition. And I was just implementing and taking these supplements and just being active, just doing what I was reading about. And,
Yeah.
you know, and literally like just switching off from the outcome and just focusing on the daily activity, feeling better along the way.
Mm.
That's all it is. So when I got that confirmation that, wow, all my efforts is actually contributing to something and this is very significant, I got a birth of like, wow, like this is amazing. And when I started to tell women, obviously, that okay, this is my story, this is what's happened, but actually this is my position now, I
Mm.
feel so much better. And actually they're shrinking, and I'm having babies fine, no complications. Then obviously they started asking, okay, so what are you doing? And this is where I started kind of just giving advice, and just sharing what I was doing. And essentially it's just simplifying how you approach your diet, your nutrition, and just being honest with what you are eating as well, being more aware. Because if realistically, based on your work schedule, which a lot of us living in the UK have quite intense work schedules, it can be a challenge to eat in a specific way. And I think when I was very honest about how I could eat, and then I thought, okay, this is how I can supplement to support my personal lifestyle, this is where a lot changed for me as well. And just educating women on that fact as well, the fact that the world we live in today doesn't support us to eat in a certain way. And because of that, most people are walking around mineral and vitamin deficient. And when we are needing more vitamin D naturally, we're used to having more vitamin D naturally, for example, and then we're suddenly not having it. And then our diet is compromised. What we're taking in is compromised. It's only a matter of time where these conditions are now literally developing in the background and then just appear. So I think that would be the most significant focus: training, implementation, and just simplifying my lifestyle and my approach, particularly to stress management as well.
Stress, indeed, stress is a major food for that, isn't it? There's this question I've been meaning to ask. You know, when they say, especially Black women, that we're low on vitamin D, especially because we've moved to England, we have less, vitamin D here. But my question is this. Let me use myself as an example. I grew up in Nigeria, in Africa. The sun is boiling hot. We're under the sun. We're
Mm,
getting the natural sun. But I
yeah,
still had fibroids.
yeah, yeah,
So how do you balance that?
yeah,
Because when you're trying to explain to Black women especially, say, oh, especially your vitamin D and all of that, and they're like, well, we're under the sun. Why are we having it? Why is it so rampant?
yeah. That's a good point and a good question, because quite a few of my clients have relocated to the UK in like the last 3 to 5 years. And what they note is that they were diagnosed in Nigeria. Funny enough, most of them are Nigerian. They were
Well,
diagnosed there, and there was no course of action. They were at a size that weren't really causing disruption, maybe a bit of symptoms, but nothing significant. And they were able to manage the situation, as in when they were going for scans, they weren't growing, and there was a level of kind of manageability there. But then once they moved here, it was like a catalyst had been put in, and everything went crazy. Like this is where they see their tummy is growing, they're growing in size, their symptoms get worse, and they always can pinpoint it to the move to the UK, where all those kind of factors obviously change: the weather, the diet, the quality of the food, possibly as well, all these factors, and then lifestyle, because now they're working. Like one of my clients, she's like, I think when she was in Nigeria, she was a banker, a bank manager or something.
yeah.
And when she came here, she's now a carer. So she is like in a whole different environment, working in a totally different way. And that's going to reflect in her body as
That's
well.
going to affect her mentally as well. So there's going to be a lot of stress, which
Mm,
is, oh, wow. Oh,
yeah,
I never thought about it that way. Like, yeah, because I used to say when I was back in Nigeria, it was bad, but it got worse when I got here. So
yeah,
what you've just said actually, resonates with, yeah, that's a good one. I never thought about it that way. Because when I got here, it got worse. It was worse. I thought it was
yeah,
bad back then, but when I got here, when I moved over, even coping with my postgrad, it was a nightmare.
I
So
bet.
that makes a lot of sense now. Yeah. And I didn't know any better, did I? So, I mean, back at home, my mom used to make us eat a lot of vegetables and fruits and all of that. You would steam the cabbage. You have to eat it.
Mm,
And we drink oranges, We always had fruits and eat loads of vegetables. So I think that kind of helped.
yeah,
But coming here,
absolutely.
try to adjust to everything. You don't eat as much as you used to. And I didn't eat as much as I used to. And I cut down on lots of stuff as well. So I guess
Yeah,
that actually, yeah.
it does, because that's literally cutting down not just food, but you were getting nutrition every
Yeah.
time you were eating throughout the
Yeah.
day in
And it was
Nigeria.
organic.
Exactly. And then suddenly you're in a work life situation where you're not eating the whole day and you're having one meal a day. Like, and you're literally, your body's not getting anything. You're
Nothing.
lucky if you're drinking the water. And
Yeah.
so this definitely over time starts to become very chronic and impact us in ways that we're just not aware of.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. So, another thing I wanted to bring up as well is, with the Black women, the Black community, when we talk about fibroids or disorders and everything. Um, like in my situation and a few other women that I know, um, have been falling into depression. Like you mentioned, you didn't even realize, until you started thinking about it. That was actually what happened. We don't. It's something we don't talk about that we're feeling depressed. It's like a taboo. It's like, no, just the same way we don't talk about our periods or what we're going through because we just feel, no, it's not right to talk about those things. What would you say um, about a woman seeing a therapist about what she's going through, talking about it? Because I feel like when we do those things, it doesn't necessarily have to be a proper therapist. But I do always say you need to talk to a therapist. It's amazing. But even if you have someone that you can confide in or talk to, would go a long way. But so many women, when they come to me to talk, they're like, no, 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 I don't want it out there. Have you spoken to any member of your family? Or no, 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 no. They feel like it's literally like saying, oh, because you have a mental breakdown, you feel like you're saying to them, oh, they've gone gaga, like they've lost it. So they don't
Yeah.
want to go in that direction. How can we get our Black women to feel more comfortable to say, this is what I'm passing through? Because we can't say this enough, that when you do that to yourself, you're putting your body through stress, you're putting your mind, everything is going through stress, and that is like you're feeding the fibers, you're feeding everything. How
Yeah.
can we get them, or what are the ways? What ways do you think we can get them to understand that speaking up, speaking out is a
Yeah.
process as well?
Absolutely. I think reflecting on how I internalized what I was going through, and I didn't speak to my sisters, I didn't speak to my mum, nobody,
Mm.
literally, just struggled with it myself. I know what it done, and it was very, very detrimental to my physical health. So it literally is like, I feel like it's the equivalent to taking poison daily in very small doses. I would go as far to say that, just very small doses, and you just don't realize the repercussions that
Yeah,
it's
but
having
you can
on
actually
your
feel it. You can
physical.
actually feel it draining you.
Yeah,
You can feel it
exactly.
draining you.
You can, you can. And moments where you feel extremely overwhelmed. I was suicidal at times with no surprise based on what I had just for some reason felt like I just couldn't talk about it. I
Mm.
couldn't open up and actually be vulnerable and just share, okay, this is what is happening. And I think, to answer your question, we need to have these conversations when we're younger. So we need to be going into schools, and young girls need to hear this now so that they get that message that it's okay to share, to talk, to offload. It's part of healing, it's part of maintaining your mental health, because we often don't understand that we have to actively work on maintaining our mental health, because the world is designed to constantly take our attention, almost drain us
Yeah,
with with messages that are not even related to us. If you think about how the media houses operate, everything's fear based, everything is led by fear. And this is because they want to get our attention, and the human brain is wired to focus on the negative anyway. So that's how we're
that's so
naturally
true.
wired, because our brain is trying to protect us, so it's always looking out for negatives. So when you have that bodily function combined with everything else, my gosh, we will feel that physically if
Mm.
we do not be intentional about protecting our mental health. And part of that is understanding that having conversations about personal issues, how you're feeling, is part of it. It's part of
Yes,
good
it's
mental health. Because if you internalize everything, it's only a matter of time whether it's going to manifest into a disease physically, or you're just going to, as they say, crash and burn out. This is what's going to happen. So I think targeting younger,
young girl.
uh, yeah, young girls, this is where it'll be normal. So by the time they're older women, it's very normal for them to just share, talk about it, and continue to encourage that point of conversation.
Fantastic. I believe so too, because because I know a lot of girls I've spoken to the last month. you asked them the question, did anyone speak to you about periods? I'm talking about girls of 14 years, 15 years, and they're like, no, they
Yeah.
didn't know anything about it. Obviously, they've heard about periods, but they don't know exactly what periods are about
Mm.
until their periods came. So I guess if we start speaking to them about it and, talking about them expressing themselves as well, learning to express themselves in this area, it will go a long way as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just normalizing it.
Yeah. Bianca's Real Talk Therapist. Hello, Bianca's is saying it starts with sharing more of our gynae issues with friends, family as well, etc. Yeah, that's really true. But it's
Yeah.
so hard for them, especially the Black community. It's so hard for them to, to talk about it to their families. That's
Mm.
where, that's where we're trying to. That's why we're trying to, tell women, start from the closest person to you. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel like, that there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's
Exactly.
not absolutely no. If you can't manage anymore, just say I can't do this anymore. I can't. Just express yourself the way you feel at that point. Just get it out of the way, and
Yeah.
it helps. It goes a long way. I know I broke down. I was trying to be strong until I couldn't be strong anymore. And when it got to that point, I said to myself, you know what? I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, yeah,
Same. And I think particularly for young girls, it's not even not being able to talk about the actual periods and the pain and the issues they might be having. It's more other issues. It could be boyfriends, it could be girlfriend trouble. And that actually gets so overwhelming that they push aside the gynecological, what they could be going through, these
yeah,
menstrual issues, because it's not something that they want because that makes sense. So if they're actually just talking and sharing in general, then it's like, okay, we forget about the boyfriend stuff now. What about you? How are you feeling?
mm,
How's your. And this is where it's like, okay, we can now talk about these things. I feel like there's just so many things and issues that young people have to go through. It's a subject that can be pushed to the side simply because they're just caught up in other stuff as well.
yeah.
And then,
That's so true. There's too many things to worry about, isn't there? I
yeah.
haven't listened to the news or read the newspaper in, I think, about 2 years or so, because
Mm,
it was just so much negativity. And I'm someone who gets very emotional. And I'm seeing this already. It's just the same way when I first found out I had adenomyosis. I went on Google. My goodness. I couldn't sleep. When you read what the breakdown, you're like, oh my
right.
God, what's happening to me? Am I going to die? Am I going to get cancer from this? Or, because it's so broad. And then you're not getting any serious answers per se. You're just seeing more information that are bringing negative things to you, and you're like, oh my goodness. It's the same with the fibroids. When I had fibroids way back 2004, I mean, who was talking about fibroids? And when I went to Google it, geez, I was so panicky.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was so panicky. I was like, oh my goodness. So it's going to grow again. It's going to, because I didn't know about five. I went into surgery because I was going for ovarian cyst. I was having an ovarian cyst removed, and I came out with them saying they had to take out fibroids. I was like, what's that?
Right.
And then trying to find out what it's about, because they're not telling you nothing. And then you're just reading. So I think if at that age I can feel overwhelmed like that, you
Mm,
know, how much more the younger ones. So yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk about what you do. You have your women's support group. You're now like a superstar now with your book. Can you tell us? Can you tell us about what you do in the group and your book, your new book?
Yeah. So essentially, we're an education organization that's really about empowering women, not only with the knowledge, but the practical tools as well to empower their wellness, empower their natural healing capabilities, and connect with them, not just on a physical level, but on a mental level. Because with what I kind of progressed through personally, once my mindset and my mental health improved significantly. It now just linked in with my physical kind of my physical health. So it's about really just equipping women with that awareness and then the tools of really activating that. And we do that in periods of time that are relatively short compared to what I've heard in regards to medication being taken for years and symptoms are just persisting, if not getting worse, or as surgery is an option. You know, it needs to be looked at as not the end, because if you look at it like that, then you might be put in a situation where they grow back and you're just, oh, they're back. So if you look at it in more of a holistic approach and really equip your body to have the level of healing, so that if you add the surgery for that immediate alleviation, you are peace of mind that you're not going to be in a situation where, you know, you're being told that they've grown back and causing trouble. So we equip women with that knowledge and tools and just make it more accessible. And then the support is there, because obviously these decisions come with lifestyle adjustments, day-to-day adjustments that are very different to what they're ordinarily accustomed to. So having that support structure, that accountability, makes these changes so much more easier, and give you that level of guidance.
Thank you. And let's talk about your book.
Yes, the book. My
If you haven't gotten this book, go get it. Honestly, I started reading it again. So yeah, I started reading it 2 days ago again. I was like, yeah. Can you tell us a bit about the book? Why did you write? Why did you decide to write it? Even though because you're doing a lot already, you're supporting women. You've helped so many women, I included. What made you decide to write this book?
I decided what made me really write the book when I did was the divorce, because it really was so clear to me that the reason why my health wasn't suffering through the process was because of all the foundations, all the principles I had been implementing. And it wasn't decision. I was very active, and it's now showing up in how I was actually going through the process. And I just thought, my gosh, I need to let women know that you have to do this, for not just
For yourself.
to have children, no, for yourself, for your own health, for your own mental health. This is real. You can do it. You can empower your mindset in a way that you will do things physically that will just wow not just you but people around you, and you will also inspire other people around you. So it basically summarizes the mental approach as well as the physical steps that I took to be in the best shape mentally and physically I've ever been in my life. You know, when I compare it to my 20s, I've never felt better as a 41-year-old now. And you know, you're told that, oh, have your kids quickly. You're given all these ideas like you're just gonna get worse as years go by, but actually you can have a child anytime. You can have a child at 50. It's your life. You decide.
That's it.
It's all based on the actions and the decisions that you make every day. You don't need to accept a narrative. You don't need to accept that everything ends at 40. Oh, you need to start rushing now. You don't need to accept that. Women at 50, even more, are having healthy kids.
Yep.
They're having healthy, you know. So it's just really just letting people know that, women know that they must have a vision and they must protect it, like as if their life depended on it, because it does. The vision you have it will reflect in your health, it will reflect in your decisions, it will reflect in your mental health, and it is your life.
So true. That's so true. Thank you for the book, and I'm sure lots of women are going to be very thankful when they do get it and read it, because it's packed with a lot. It's packed with a lot.
Thank you.
I'm still struggling with my what's it called now? My diet plan.
Well, let me reframe that. You're not struggling. You are working through, you're making daily adjustments, and you're moving in the right direction
Thank
every
you for that. Thank you for that.
time.
I needed to hear that. Because I keep saying, oh my God, I know I'm trying my best, but sometimes I just need certain things that, I'm like, oh my. I mean, I haven't had coffee, I don't know when last. And then I started craving coffee on Monday. I was like, my goodness. It felt
Yeah,
like my entire body was starving from it. I was like,
yeah,
well, I don't even buy coffee. Why am I wanting coffee so bad? I
mm,
said, this new diet, goodness me. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we're pushing,
It's
we're pushing. Yeah.
But you know what? If you have an overwhelming, have the organic, like get the organic
Yeah.
one, have a few, have a little bit, mix
Just a
it with
little bit.
a coffee replacement, go half.
Okay.
That will be
Uh,
fine. Just
okay.
to,
I'll do that. I did get myself coffee eventually, but as soon as I had it, that was it. It's gone. Like, well, no, I just got a little one. And that was it. It was gone. No craving anymore. So I was like,
I love matcha, and I've got my girls on it as well. So
oh,
they make
nice.
iced lattes with
Okay.
plant milk,
I'll
which
try
is,
it out.
oh,
I do
yeah,
have is a green matcha. I haven't actually tried. Someone gave it to me. It's in there in the cupboard, but maybe I'll try that out.
yeah, it's great. It's nice.
Yeah. Okay. I think someone's got something for you. So it's lady. I always forget her name. Lady Almerji.
Yeah,
Andia. That's it. Yeah. Hi,
yeah.
Andia. She says, thank you
I,
for this enlightenment, Nina. I hear some doctors in Africa are advising women to have kids to solve the fibroid problem.
okay,
Yes,
okay,
that is true. I was told at the age of 18 to start having kids to solve. No.
okay. Wow.
I did at that point. I didn't even know I had fibroids, but because I had really bad periods, I was in and out of hospital. I was told to start having kids early,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking I'm just going into uni. You're telling me to start having. It was like,
Gosh, that's not
but
a
yeah,
solution,
they
is
do
it?
tell us to start having kids early. That it would
Right.
solve the problems of the periods. But I do know people who did start having kids early and still going through the period pain. So
It's yeah. It's
I
I
won't
guess
solve it.
the problem it would solve is fertility in regards to, okay, you've got kids, but
Yeah,
other I can't see how.
yeah.
Um.
So
Yeah.
that's what in quotes. That's
Yeah. Wow.
what we're
And is
told.
that recent, Andia? Is that a recent kind of guide? Is that recent or?
Well, I've done that for growing up. I don't know if they're still doing that now. Then that's still wild, isn't it? If they're still
Mm,
saying that to them, they do say that though, because they feel like when you give birth, it's going to like maybe dissolve or stop growing. But everything works hand in hand. Like I always say, you need to check your diet, check your nutrition, what you're feeding yourself, what are you
mm,
doing with yourself. Are you exercising or are you some person that doesn't do nothing, no walking, no nothing? Your body's
yeah.
just sat in one place every day. You get
Yeah.
to
Very.
your office, sit in front of your computer, do your
Mm,
work, go home, drive your car. You know, if you're not doing anything, it's not healthy for your body.
yeah. Yeah.
What
Well,
you're eating. So
she heard it a few weeks ago. Yeah. That's. I wouldn't say that's a solution.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't solve anything. It might help. I don't know. I don't know if it does help, but it might help some people maybe
Mm,
reduce their period pain or bleeding. It might. I don't know, but I
yeah.
do know. I do know people who have had kids early and still having period pain even now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And some women will have fibroids and never know that they've got.
nothing, absolutely nothing. I know
It,
until they're some of them until they're giving birth. Oh,
on. Yeah.
yeah. And then they
Yeah.
tell them, "Well, do you know you have fibroids?"
Yeah.
You
Sorry.
can have a little, you can have just a little bit of fibroids, and then it's at the wrong place because where it's located is a nightmare and just
Yeah. Well,
crazy.
one of my clients, she's had 3 surgeries and it keeps growing back in the same place. Very fast, very fast.
Wow.
Mm.
3 times. Goodness me. I had
Yeah,
two and that was enough for me.
yeah. I think 2 laparoscopic, 1 open.
Oh my.
Yeah, and she's been advised they can't do any more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's the same sport, isn't it?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Really, we have. There is another way, and we just have to keep educating ourselves,
Mm,
empowering ourselves, and I think for Black women, we definitely have to talk more and just let our younger, women, young girls know that this is part of it. You need
yes,
to talk, you need to share, you need to let people know what's happening, so that early diagnosis, early intervention in a more
that's the key.
lifestyle,
Yeah, getting to the root of the problem.
exactly, rather than just, okay, take this hormonal pill.
Yeah, that
We'll
just
take
manages
that.
it.
Yeah. So just support the root kind of contributing factors. Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, if you've got any questions, if you can just type them in the comment section, then we can read it out. I'm going to ask this question now for the women who watch this maybe later, and are going through, maybe they've just been diagnosed with fibroids and about to have surgery, or they're having their heavy bleeding and having all the symptoms but haven't been diagnosed yet. What would you say to such a person, or such to a group of women who come to you to say, this is where I am at the moment. What should I do?
So they're so they're having symptoms that are very debilitating, and they've not been diagnosed yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I would advise that woman to get the referral to see their gynecologist as soon as possible, and get that clarity on what's happening, and what sort of treatment plan would be in place for a woman that maybe doesn't want to conceive anytime soon, and needs a level of guidance. So that would be the first step, to get clarity with a gynecologist. And then once you've got the clarity, you can now really implement a holistic assessment of what you're currently doing. I think you can't really move forward with impact in your life if you've not able to really assess what you're doing and what could have contributed to where you've arrived at today, and looking at the variables that you may have overlooked. Are there women in your family that also have,
Also,
could it be that you are at more of a risk
mm,
genetically? If that's the case, then you have to be extra careful with your diet to not, so it's just really taking assessment of where you're at, and
mm,
then now mapping out a way forward, which you're going to be much more empowered in, because you're really aware of the variables that have contributed to where you're at, today.
and for the woman who has already been diagnosed and about to have surgery, but doesn't want to have surgery, what would you say to such a woman?
So surgery usually is, it's not the first point of, like, it wouldn't be given very early on. So usually there is kind of like a time span of medication to shrink. So hormonal intervention is usually given first before surgery. But if they're at the point of surgery and they don't want it, I would have to understand what their fertility goals are, their age as well, and then understand a bit more about their history. But if they're wanting to conceive, let's say they're 42, just
Yeah.
for example,
Hmm.
and they conceive, and that's a big goal, and they're at the point of surgery, I would say you would have to consider that based on your age and wanting to conceive, because following any kind of holistic approach at this point, you don't know the timescales and you don't know the level of traction, if that will be enough for you to still kind of push for the, you know, the fertility process. So it would really depend on a lot of things, but I think it's important that the holistic approach combined with any kind of surgical intervention, or if not, put in place before the surgery.
Before
So
the surgery.
is that they're following this approach way before the surgery and get to a point where when they're doing those scans, they don't even need the surgery. Like one of my clients literally messaged me today. She's based in New York and done the scan now. She's been following the protocols for a few months and they've actually said, we can monitor it now. The fibroid shrinking, you don't need the surgery. And that's literally what I've, you know, put on my status today. Like literally, she doesn't need surgery and she's just going to keep following what she's following, and all her symptoms have significantly reduced. So, you know, when you have that, then you may not need to go for the surgery based on how your body's responding. And, you know, so at least it just gives you more options.
Yes.
If you can start a protocol
Yes.
for the surgery. Yeah.
Why do you think I'm not doing a game blame here, but why do you think that we are not told about nutrition and diets when it comes to womb disorders?
I think it starts from what the doctors are taught. I think it starts from that, because if you're not taught something, it's very unlikely that you're going to have any experience with a patient through that process, because you've not been taught it. So it's not even in your schemata in regards to when you're, you know, dealing with patients and talking to patients. So I think from that standpoint, that's one of the main reasons. It's a really small percentage of what doctors learn. So anything to do with alternative healings and holistic nutrition, all of that, it's an area that pharmaceutical companies that make the medications, they're not keen on, because they can't patent anything that occurs naturally.
Yeah.
So for example, bee pollen, for example, it's a naturally occurring substance and nobody can patent it and say it's mine, therefore make profit. So what happens is they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it, and they might use it as an ingredient in their products, their medication, but they won't talk about this in its own entity as a healing tool, because nobody can profit from it. So that's what's happening. A lot of things are not being talked about, like propolis, which is very popular in Australia. And people in Australia take it as like a natural daily antibiotic. It's very normal for them. But a British person wouldn't know what that is. And there's so many benefits naturally from propolis. But nobody's talking about it. And it's because nobody can profit, because it occurs naturally. So
it's all about the business.
It's the business. In all honesty, I think that's what it boils down to: profit margins. And the truth is, people are making more money when we're sick. If we're doing repetitive surgeries, if we're on constant medication, it's keeping people's pockets lined constantly. Think about it. If you solved it at the root and you only needed, I don't know, one surgery, or you only needed one kind of exposure to medication and everything else was fine, then a lot of people would be out of pocket.
So true. So true.
They just want a way to just keep us in the system. That's what I think.
Sad. So this takes me to the next, we're almost done. Thank you all for being patient with us, and thank you for joining in. So this morning I saw on Don's status, I don't remember whose page it was she got it from, but it was saying that the NHS is paying people to go abroad for treatment because there's too many battles.
Okay.
For people that have to have surgeries, or they, you know, from fibroids, adenomyosis, endometriosis, everything, and there's so much backlog. So they're now paying people to go abroad.
Wow. Wow. That
It's just shows that, you know, something needs to be done about how we take care of our health, because there's millions of people waiting. I'm not saying 1 million. I think I saw about 5 million. I can't remember now. But there are millions of women waiting for their surgeries. For it's crazy, and you know, we're just saying this now, like, oh, you need to take care of your health. You need to, you know, watch what you're eating, do this and do that. But so many people. I was speaking to someone who's having the same fibroid issue, and I'm saying you need to start with your diet. What are you eating? You need to take out red meat because you love red meat. You eat it so much. You're like, I can't do that. So
Yeah,
sometimes we are our own problem.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
our own problem, and you know, just seeing how many people are waiting to have surgery.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow, it's a real, yeah, it's an epidemic.
It is.
And
Something needs to, no, something needs to be done. Something has to, you know, shift, change.
yeah, and it's just about being, like your friend who eats a lot of red meat and
Mhm.
said, "No, I can't do that." I think when there's enough pain, unfortunately, human beings, we make decisions whether we need to either be in pain or, and that's when we actually make a decision to do something. Maybe there's just not enough pain that she's experiencing to actually want to make a change. But she doesn't have to look at it as cutting it out altogether. She can just look for alternatives and just reduce her intake, and explore other protein sources. So I think it's just, yeah, really just understanding that we can eat a much more varied diet. And I think, particularly being African, I know that just from attending parties, it's like a staple menu, isn't it? It's like
It
you
is.
don't expect. So it's just this idea of, okay, how do we get our diet more varied, more healthy, more nutritionally dense, and just support our health with that long term.
Mm. Thank you for that. So, if there was a time machine, would you go backwards in time or would you go forward, and why?
That's a really good question. I would go backwards
Why?
because that's an opportunity to. Do you know what? No, actually, I would go forwards. I'd go forward because even though it was painful, everything that you and we all go through, so much is birthed out of that pain. So much learning has come out of that pain. And I think if you go back to rewrite, you're actually going to not become
Who
that.
you are today?
Yeah, is what I mean. That actually impacted so many more people. So I would go forward, and I would make it so that Black women, particularly, are no longer treated like this is normal, and there is a proper system in place in regards to intervening on risk level. So there's like a risk assessment at a particular age. Are you more prone to this condition? Okay, you're more prone. So this is the process. A bit like, when they do tests to check if you're more prone to things like, I don't know, diabetes, if it runs
Yeah,
in your family.
yeah. Check your allergies and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So just a process like that, so
Mm,
that from a very early age, you're on a whole different route in regards to guidance, advice, and what you're going to be doing.
mm.
And there'll be nothing like surgeries to treat it no more. We won't be at that. There'll be nothing like surgeries or hormones, and yeah, we'll be in a whole different place.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Saying that
Mm,
women don't have to go through that in another couple of years. It would really be amazing to know. And
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, nobody asked any questions. So I'm just going to say before we go, what would you like to share with everyone before we go?
Um, I would like to just, I always go on about this because I just think it helps us be more in the present rather than kind of worrying about what's not happened or focusing on what's happened. So I think having a system where you anchor yourself daily in
Mm.
your vision, in what drives you, in what makes you you, and just gives you that excitement without any external stimuli, without alcohol. I'm not saying you drink alcohol or smoking or anything. You don't need anyone or anything to feel better.
Better.
But just being able to anchor yourself in that moment and connect with that on a daily basis, I think is very powerful for your health and for your mental health. And it will impact your decisions on that day. It will impact how you sleep. It will impact your everything, everything. The same feeling you can have in your gut where you feel sick because you've just heard something that's so, whether shocking or
Sickness.
sad,
Mm.
you can have a feeling that is like excitement. And it's
Mm.
all because you've just tapped into your vision. You've tapped into a hope. You've tapped into that joy, that belief. And that is bulletproof. That you can go into any consultant room, they can tell you something, but you're so connected. You say, okay, if that's what it is, but this is what I see. This is what I'm doing. And it can really support you in whatever you might be going through, because life has a way of life, and you just find yourself, in really situations that can be really demanding and draining. But if you can work on that inner strength, then you're able to move through these stages in your life.
Fantastic. So I know you told us your story, you told us where you are, and we talked about the surgery. I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to tell us genuinely, how are you? How do you feel
I
after,
feel,
with the divorce, with
yeah,
everything that's going on? I know you've been busy doing all other stuff behind the scenes, but how are you really?
I'm so good. I feel so grateful. I feel so grateful. I can see so much more learning out of stuff that's happening. Whereas before, stuff will be happening and I'll be like literally curling up in a ball, asking in tears my mum, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And I'm not in that place. I'm literally like, what can I learn from this? Okay, this is happening. What is it teaching me? Okay, what is this teaching me? Even one of my affirmations recently is, every situation that is presented to me, I have a solution. Every situation
I
that is
like that.
presented to me, I have a solution. I no longer say, I don't use the word problem anymore. I don't use the word challenge. I literally just say, every situation, there's no situation that can happen that I do not have a solution within me. I can find. And that's what I'm saying. I've been saying for the past few months.
Oh,
And I have
nice.
solutions. I'm
I've
finding
gone
solutions.
from saying problems to challenges. Now you're saying no situations. Nice one. I'm
Yes.
going to tap into that because that's very
So,
positive for the mind as well, isn't it?
absolutely. And yeah, I feel so blessed. I'm so grateful. I really am. I'm grateful to just hearing the feedback I get from clients. I'm just so grateful.
Oh, bless you. Bless you.
Oh my God.
God has a way of using us to do his will and his purpose. Like I always say to people, not everyone has to be a preacher, not everyone has to be a pastor or an evangelist. We have our different missions, tasks that God has given to us to do on earth. And, once we find that purpose, we run with it. And you're running with that. And, you know, I'm sure every woman you've helped, supported, are all grateful for that. And I say thank you. And I pray that God will continue to strengthen you to carry on with your mission and purpose. And we're going to see you
Amen.
greater and bigger places. The sky is on the limits.
Amen.
Well done
Thank you
for all
so
you
much,
do.
Lero, for having me.
Glad
Um,
to have had it today. And Nina is going to be on the website tomorrow, so you can read more about her story and everything she's doing. Link we posted out tomorrow for you to read. Thank you all so much for joining in. Yes, I'm saying thank you. You're amazing. Thanks for sharing and being so transparent. Yeah, thank you, Nina. Thank you,
joining.
everyone. All right. Bye.
Bye.